Shalom, shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles who are elders who rule well. Blessings and salutations to you brothers out there teaching in enduring truth and sincerity. This Rob Amar for the Nebraska camp. And I just want to, just go over a little excerpt, man. I was just meditating and we was talking about it in camp. And the title of the lesson is we are like Jason Bourne, okay? Because Esau is going to try to turn us into domestic terrorists and things like that, which we are not. All right, we ain't no radical whatever group that they try to make us. Because especially this has to be said now because Esau's looking for that. And people like Vocab is going to try to help push that agenda. And the reason why we're not like afraid of what Esau do, but it's not the time, okay? Because at the end of the day, will the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans have something to do with the downfall of America? Hell yeah. It's going to be the chariots, the missiles. It's going to be Jacob's trouble, all right? It's going to be Jake, and let's get the precept to prove that, okay? So when we go to Jeremiah 51:20, it says, "Thou art my battle axe." Salakia. I think I'm going to go up to 19. It says, "The portion of Jacob, which is the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name." Yeah, we are his inheritance. We are Yahweh Shem Shai's inheritance. We are the anointed. We are the, which is the chosen of the nation, okay? Of the nations on planet Earth. We are the chosen, all right? We're not, that's why we're a peculiar people. In particular, the Lord's not like them. We're not like the nations, okay? And getting into it, continuing on, it says, "Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war, for with thee I will break in pieces," what? The nations. "And with thee will I destroy kingdoms. And with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider. And with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider." You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, once all hell breaks loose, the Lord's going to utilize us as well to be a part of the daughter of Babylon's downfall. Okay, just like we're chanting it down, and we're chanting it down, but it's going down on its own. Okay, like it's not like we're the systematic cause of it. We're just going to be the agreement to it. Okay, but at the end of the day, because I like to perpetuate that, because they're going to try, they're going to try to label us as DTs, Jake through Rex 84 and things like that, and at the end of the day, just like from these YouTubes, this audio I'm recording, my screen being recorded, they already tapped in and they already have their list from the red, yellow, and green type of things, while all these other camps are running with their tails tucked behind their legs, talking about we're not affiliated with these other camps. You know what I'm saying? Which is understandable, because they got groups out here that's just walking around doing dumb shit, and it's a misrepresentation. But there's a deeper calling to that. They're trying to separate themselves and say, hey, I'm one of the good ones. Well, we're saying, look, we stick to the prophecies. All right. So getting back to what I was saying is that we are Jason Bourne, and it ain't talking about we're like I said, we aren't no sleeper cells. A sleeper cell is a person that was programmed to do something, like a 00 agent, whatever you want to call it. And, they do it through torture tactics and things like that. And then you wake up and then, you do the bidding of whoever programmed you. Okay. Now, of course, Yahweh Shai Shai programmed us, and, but it's not the same type of scenario where he's just waiting or something like that. And no, it's not guerrilla warfare. What's happening is that we fell away from our heritage. Okay. We lost our heritage. It's like Jason Bourne, you lose your memory, but you still have all the attributes of being an Israelite. Okay. That's why, and the thing is that, I know this is a little side note, But Esau, like Jay gotta really, you should really get into like from the petty to the big, the history of Esau and his hatred towards Jacob. I know we know slavery, but like fried chicken, they they scoff at fried chicken not because y'all Negroes, y'all with your Negro lips, your ninja lips, and you know what I'm saying. All y'all do is eat chicken and eat watermelon. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't. They didn't do that because they just wanted to make fun. Fried chicken was a product like beef jerky. Okay, it was something that you can make and travel without it spoiling fast. And so we as Israelites created that concept, through fried chicken, and we made money off of it. And what Esau did, like he normally do, he turns around and demonize it and bring incredulities towards it, and pretty much shoo everybody away from the thing, just like Vocab does with us, with this ministry, just like, the NFL does with Shador Sanders, just like, the media does with Mayweather, or any black fighter going to try to, or anybody that, any so-called potential of a Messiah. They're going to eliminate him, okay? Just like they crucified our Lord, man. So how much more would they do to us, okay? When we stand up and we start gathering people, because they've had their spurts to know how to suppress us. They know how to suppress us spiritually, but then you had, like your Malcolm X's and things like that, and certain people from, the guy's name escaped me, but long story short, you had uprisings and people, so they had the experience to say, okay, from the Willie Lynch to propaganda and the different tactics to know how to keep us docile, and they've made us bump our heads spiritually, you know, um, because once you go into the scriptures, because again, these scriptures don't apply to the heathen. They don't apply to them small hats that's over there in our land. These prophecies apply to us. We've been get discontinued from our heritage. The small hats never been discontinued from their heritage, technically. You know what I'm saying? They just popped up, okay? Which are those people that the Ashkenaz, actually the Amalekites, that migrated into Russia. And they come from the Khazaria. They really was mingling with the Mongols. They're not Mongols, okay? Let's get that corrected, because Attila the Hun and all these other guys was you know taking over that area of the Levant, or that Crimea area, Turkey area. And they weren't Turkish. They just adapted to Turkish culture. Okay, so when you do your history, they always call them Turkic. It's just that they spoke the language and they adapted to the culture. All right, which happens from time to time. That just happened. If you go in South Texas, South California, you're gonna know some type of Spanish. You're gonna eat some tacos. Like the closer you get to somebody's country, the more you're gonna adhere to their culture. For the most part. All right, which is what happened to our people ultimately with these idols. But um, Hosea 1:10, it says, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea." Yep, and we are the majority as far as the population of Earth. When you're talking about South America, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, Latinos alone just just kills the argument. But the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans all put together creates a huge cluster of Israelites. I'm talking about the known Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Not only the ones that are scattered across the four corners of the earth, because there's Israelites in Belgium, there's Israelites in Australia, Austria, Europe, in clusters. Okay, so at the end of the day, we are the sand of the sea, and it says, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, that has never happened to those small hats. They've never been said that you aren't the children of Israel on a universal front. They've been accused of it now because truth is being manifest. So we don't try to play no games with that. My point is that they never their heritage never was disconnected from them as a people. Okay, Only thing that they're battling with now is that land, and it's because that land ain't theirs. That land ain't there for them Palestinians, which I believe those are they could be Arabs or Ishmael, going back to them. Or could be a mixture of Turkish and Ishmael, however it goes. But the Palestinians weren't there, and they weren't there in the time of Rome in 70 A.D. Those are Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in that land. All right, just like that ambassador from Ham said himself, y'all left black and came back white. Okay, the Book of 13 Tribe explained to you as well. All right, which is a very interesting period, because from 70 A.D. all the way up to 1776, that's over that's almost 2,000 years. Okay, 1776, which is, you could say, the 1400s is around when Esau came out of them caves. Okay, Esau reared up. You know what I'm saying? That dragon came to deceive the world. Um, and it all started, through Portugal, really Europe. Europe was already doing a thing, and then Portugal found a way to get to Americas, and that opened up the transatlantic slave trade and the iconoclasm. But even though Europe was the ones that hedged it, via through the Vatican, okay, which is it's a very interesting history, because there's a lot that happened during that period, during the Moorish Empire, because it's not like we just got knocked upside the head. There was a progression that we lost our heritage, and through us fleeing in the wilderness and going into South Africa, West Africa, not South Africa, but North Africa and West Africa, and we also migrated out into Russia and Germany. Okay, that's why there's Russian icons. All right, because around that time we didn't just flee into Africa, we also fled into Russia. Okay, and those Amalekites also fled in that direction also. All right, and and they end up uh, 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 um, going into Russia. They went from Khazar and they got pushed up north. I believe it's from the Moors. I could be wrong, but when you go into that whole situation, once we fled out of Israel and went to West Africa, then you had a part where Rome, the Holy Roman Empire, the Crusades and all that going on, and then the popes, which, got established, around that same time. It's a lot of stuff that happened that really got groundwork to a lot of deception, you know. So you got all that going on in Rome and Europe, and then you also got the Khazars and the Mongols, and they're doing their thing, running around, you know what I'm saying? Because that's why, the Khazars are known for horseback riding, because they got that from the Mongols. They intermingled with them, you know. Um, but long story short, they end up getting pushed up north, okay? And they end up going into Germany. They fled from Germany, went into Russia, and then Ivan, they call him Ivan the Terrible, that's not his name, but is even programmed into me, because I forget his actual name. But Ivan kicked them out, and they fled back into Germany, and then that's where you get the Adolf Hitler situation, to where they got pushed out of that situation. So, and the reason why they were, because Slovakia, I know I'm all over the place, but I wanted to reference, because people say Israelites got kicked out of, said number of countries. And some of them countries were us, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Some of them countries were us fleeing. Some of them countries were from us, from Egypt, from Babylon to, Egypt again, through Ptolemy, Philadelphus, from Rome, so some of them things it doesn't apply. But other reasons, when they got kicked out, it was because they were bringing in, child pedo situations, rape, transgenderism, and all that type of stuff. And that's why they were burning books and doing that. And they was also using usury. That was the main thing, okay? And unrighteous balance, okay? So getting back to it, they were, they're in that area. So, in Slovakia, because I do want to go back a little bit to that. And when you go into the 13th tribe and you go into that time period, the Moorish Empire pretty much had them cornered, and then the Pope and the Vatican had them cornered. And it was a constant war between the Muslims and the so-called Christians via through the Crusades and the Islamic Caliphate, whatever you want to call it. They're going back and forth, and the Khazars were in the middle of that terrain. If do your geopolitics, not geopolitics, but your geographics, you'll see that Khazaria is in the middle. When you talk about the Silk Road, you're talking about, like Russia even built roads for them. You know what I'm saying? The same way that fucking Italy built bridges for Iran. When there's trade quality, they'll do business with you. But long story short, while all this is going on, what were Israelites doing? We were in West Africa, and the Moors got a hold of us. Okay, well, the Moors, not Israelites. I mean, the Moors, but the Ishmael, I would say, but the Muslims got a hold of us, and I think you call them Berbers. I did some some good study on it, but there's a term called Berbers, and us as Israelites, and this is where you get race, where you can see sex and race, where you see our emblems and our flags and our um, things going on in Europe and Ireland and things like that. That's because what happened was pretty much the Moors was pushing westward, and they got into Africa, and they was ultimately trying to get into Europe and Rome and all that, but they ultimately couldn't get into Rome, couldn't get into Europe because of its geographical location, but they got Ireland, okay, um, which is why you got a lot of Irish people or black Irish or Israelites, okay. There's a lot of, so when you get into that Dark Ages, Beethoven, all that, that was during the time of the Moorish Empire, which today's mathematics. Them niggas, yeah, those were Israelites that converted to Islam, and what happened was they eventually broke off and turned to Moors because they were treated as second-class citizens, even though they was promised to be, a part and equal. And Ishmael pretty much found roundabout ways to fucking treat Jake like shit, same way Esau do here. They'll tell you you got the same access as we got, but when the police pull you over, you don't get the same uh, um, reasoning and empathy. Okay, you go to get along, you don't get the same opportunities, and that's what Jake was going through with Ishmael, with Muslims, with Islam, and so they pretty much broke off. They stayed into Islam, but they did their own thing, and Islam spread so wide that it eventually, it's supposed to be one caliphate, but eventually people start setting themselves up in certain ways, and eventually Jake just kind of broke off from them, but didn't like truly break off. But it wasn't enough for the Islam to be like, we gonna kill these niggas. You know what I'm saying? But long story short, well, make a long story longer. You know, we went into Europe and Asia Minor, I would say. Okay, Italy, Portugal, Ireland. All right, and at that point in time, now again, we weren't into our Israelite heritage at that point. Were there Israelites into their Israelite heritage? Yeah, but in mass, a lot of our people converted to Islam via the Moors. Okay, I'm not gonna say like all of them. It was just an overwhelming. No, it was a good portion of them. That's how we ended up in Europe, and then you also, because again, that also proves my point that they didn't convert in mass, because you had the Russian icons, which there was even an argument to say, hey, don't paint those icons because that's idols, and they was trying to do it to uphold what we held. That's why you get dark skinned Yahushua and dark skinned Mary, because they was painting the actual images up, right? So going forward, you get Queen Isabella and a couple other people, Henry, the Navigator, but Isabella was the one that set up the idea of of the Reconquista, okay? And the Reconquista and the Renaissance went alongside each other, all right? Now, the thing is, even though it's Queen Isabella, even though it's Prince Henry, because you got Portugal, you got, I don't know why I can't think of, you got Portugal, you got France, you know what I'm saying? You got Italy, all these places are at this time are trying to get a foothold and be the dominant world power, okay? Because America to this day has only become the world power after World War II, once they took over, because that's all that was about, was thwarting Germany. They did, I believe they did it twice, if I'm not wrong. I could be wrong, because they did it when they tried to assassinate with the Black Hand and all that, because, with the three cousins that were fucking around in World War One, and that happened, and then you had World War Two, okay, which followed shortly after. But all of it was to try to become a world power, and Germany was economically, like, the shit that they were building, the things that they were doing. To this day, a lot of German science and revolutions was founded in that time when Hitler was going crazy. Methamphetamine comes from that time. You know what I'm saying? Uranium comes from that time. They were into all that. Them German scientists was into all that. Okay? Which is a whole different story in itself. Because that's why they stole all them scientists and used them for themselves in America. But getting back to what I was saying is that, Queen Isabella veered through the Vatican. All right? That's the one main pit stop I wanted to make, is veer through the Vatican. Queen Isabella, was granted to do the iconoclasms, and it eventually turned into a whole thing, and it bled over. I can't say it bled over because it was a Catholic Church thing. This got approved, through the Vatican. The Vatican was approving Columbus coming over here. The Vatican approved of certain who could be a slave and who wasn't determined a slave, which is where you get Darwinism and the term of black and white, because they had to get it approved by the Vatican. The whole idea of separating church and state is because the Vatican was running everything, and that's the three frogs. You have the Vatican, you have the military might, which is America, then you have the financial might, which is London, right, or the central bank. Okay, but the Vatican has had a big hold on the world, especially with the Crusades. Okay, so Israelites are Israeliting, you know what I'm saying, into being Moors and all that, and then eventually the Edom started fighting back. All right, which our people end up, Jake got docile and they fled. And really, the Black Plague or bubonic plague took a lot of the Jake down, and it weakened. And that really would help the Reconquista, in all actuality, because it wasn't like they was just gonna kick our ass, But fast forward, pretty much eventually, Henry the Navigator and all these guys, they found out how to get from, from Europe down to South Africa to India. But eventually they wanted to, they already had the idea to come to Americas, okay? Because how the hell Henry the Navigator knows to travel the currents to America, but you do all that just to go to India? Get the fuck out of here, all right? You made a map with the currents of the world, okay? And you showed on that map how to get from Europe to South America. And you mean to tell me, say, you know what, I'm going to go to India. Now, you need India for its resources, but you really want to go down there to get to that new land because I think it's the Meridian, there was a deal that Portugal made with Italy, or I forget. I don't know if it's not France, it's Italy. And they pretty much made that line and gave Portugal the west side, and that's how Portugal ended up being able to come over to Americas first and do all that, and they brought us over here. And that's where we was discontinued from our heritage, because how can you control us except you do that? And this goes, and if you do your history, you'll know the Assyrian Empire was one of the originators of doing that. All right. They'll relocate your ass, put you in the land where you don't know, because they're to ensure that you don't escape, evacuate, and then they'll beat their laws into you. Okay. Which is why they didn't last long, because they were too ruthless. And Babylon, Greece and Rome adopted the energy of Babylon by not totally overthrowing countries, but absorbing them. You know what I'm saying? So they can continue to collect their taxes. All right. Nebuchadnezzar did it. The Grecians did it. Rome did it. And eventually America does it. All right. And they do it via through democracy. All right. So continuing on, getting back to Hosea 1 and 10, it says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living power. And that's here in America. All right. We are not called Israelites here. There's no other nation that has lost their heritage. We lost our heritage. So when we sit there, and that's why we're called black Hebrew Israelites by Esau and you dumbass niggas, because we lost our heritage. Nobody's going to call them white Israelites. All right. And they're the real imposters. Okay. But we get discredited, even though the scriptures all point to us being the Israelites. Okay. The Lord was dark skinned. They're not dark skinned. That's it. But let's get to 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 1. I want to get that real quick. One of the brothers brought this out. I thought it was real dope. It says, the second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your minds by way of remembrance, that ye may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets, and of the commandments of the apostles. And that's what's happening right now, man. We're stirring up by way of remembrance, because it's already in us, and that activates that like I said, that Jason Bourne. We've been knocked upside the head via the idols, via the programming, you know what I'm saying, the education, from whatever. Your name is Toby, you know what I'm saying, to and and all that, you're a bad bit wop and all that programming, man. All that programming, but things that happen and it'll take your ass back. Esau do something, we'll get together. We would, that's why Esau wants to keep us separate, because if we get together, bro, we're gonna start figuring it the fuck out, and we figure it the fuck out together. As a nation, we are unified in spirit, so we're going to eventually start doing right. Okay. It's just that we have Esau, just like I'm working at this facility, man, and it's a projects, man. It's like low income buildings, and it's primarily based off of the idea of Section 8, right? But it's older people, things like that, and it's bro, it's cameras everywhere. They don't have no liberty. They're in an apartment, but you gotta have escorts. You can't just walk around. You gotta go and have meetings. Your liberties are totally stripped. And then when you go into the history, like the medical apartheids that they were doing, you have these motherfuckers pump shit through the building, the urgent cares. They were doing things there. It's just a myriad of things that goes on in these places, because you're vulnerable. All right. You don't have a voice. We the dead of the world. Okay. And Esau loved it so he liked to have a separate, which is a part of the curses, because the curses isn't like this magical thing. Some of it's magical, some of it's systematic, but it's all by the bidding of Yahweh Shem Shai. All right. So I want to continue on. So I want to get this as well. I've been mentioning it, so I might as well get this, and got to do it justice. In Jeremiah 17:4 it says, and thou which is us, even thou thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. And this is how the Lord treats us. You know what I'm saying? This is like, so Jake can get an understanding. When Jake always said, what was the Most High during slavery? What was we were discontinued. When it's a beautiful thing to be up under our laws. Our laws is the wisdom and the sight of the nations. It makes us powerful. So when the Lord turns his back on us, it's not just like we stop getting paid fucking $500 every week. No, it turns into we become degenerate, man. Base level. Look at our women. Look at our men. All right. Look at the children. All right. And I ain't talking about just the base pee popping and gang banging. I'm talking about motherfuckers being professors, PhDs, Greek Q dogs, and it's everything. Our people have lost their way and turned into another. They trusted in the shadows of Egypt. And only the elect have came out of that. As the scripture said, come out of her, my people, for it's polluted. It shall destroy you with a sword of destruction. Only the elect have came out of her. We still go to grocery stores. We wear Nikes, but we're not walking and saying, oh, I ain't shit if I don't got no Nikes on my feet. Or I'm not the man. I don't feel like a real man unless I shave my face. Or I feel handsome if I got long dreadlocks. You know what I'm saying? Or a lineup. I can't go outside without a butter lineup. The hoes ain't going to want me. We don't live by them standards. And that's just base things I'm naming. Well, I ain't successful unless I got an education. Uh, um, you know, I eat good. I weigh this much, or I got this type of car. You know what I'm saying? We've detached from the matrix. Okay, the rest of our people haven't. But you get them deja vus, you get them stints of reality, them shocks of reality, even when you're in the matrix. When Jake get ran down on, you get reminded that Esau's your enemy. All right? When you see Jake do great things, you get reminded that we are a special, peculiar people. And we know it. That's why our women is walking around talking about black girl magic, because they're suffering from an identity crisis. They know that they're special, but they're not attaching to the culture, and they're trying to be special in a clown suit. Same thing with the men. That's why they're riding around with rims and all that, because that's in our DNA, but we're not kings. So Esau is going to do what? He's going to bring out incredulity. Look at them. You just riding. What else is a king supposed to do? That's dumb as hell. To have all the riches on planet Earth and wear Dockers. It don't make no damn sense, man. You got all the gold on planet Earth. Show it. It ain't no destructive man. That's self-bragging. But meanwhile, your ass have capitalism and drain everybody of their resources. You know? Esau got some dumbass ways, and they try to make you feel bad for not adhering to our ways. Ain't nothing wrong with having gold on your body. All right? It's actually good for you. It's actually healthy to ingest gold and to have gold on you because it's a conductor. You know what I'm saying? But Esau make you feel like shit. Solomon had gold flakes in his cornrows. They weren't dreadlocks, they were cornrows. Okay? Like we have discontinued from our heritage, but we're getting back to it. That's why the men, even the people that aren't into what we're doing, they're getting back to it because the Lord is omnipotent. He controls all spirits. Okay? So even 2/3, that's why you're getting this red pill, blue pill. Okay? That's why women are bugging out even harder. All right? Because it's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. They're weeping and gnashing. And the missiles haven't even hit yet. But they're gnashing and they're clawing and they're yelling on a spiritual level. And it's like the Lord does that. He show you signs of like how everything going to play out. We're watching the women claw for their fucking life to hold on to the ways of Babylon. We're watching men rise up and say, man, I'm tired of this shit, man. We're watching men go to extreme and sell all the way out. Okay? We're watching sides being chosen. The closer we get to this thing, the closer we get, the more you're going to see who's who and whose side is on what. Because you got a lot of people that you may have friends with, you might got co-workers, college students, or whatever, and they may be heathens. You may think they cool, and you may low-key think you're confused, but you're going to find out via Isaiah, the 13th chapter. Everybody's going to join unto themselves, man. But I don't want to linger that. I want to go into Romans chapter 11, verse 13. It says, I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles. And we've taken that heritage, that legacy, and continued it. Paul was the apostle of the Gentiles, and we are continuing that legacy of being the apostles to the Gentiles, bringing the people that are in the world into this truth. Okay, because the 12 disciples were waking up Israelites and calling them unto repentance. They weren't waking them up and saying, "Hey, you're an Israelite." They were telling them, "Look, you being wicked. Follow the Lord. The Lord will give you redemption." But then when we went to the Gentiles, it was more like, you're an Israelite. And that's what we're doing to this day. We're heavy into what Paul's ministry was. Going up to our people, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and telling them who they are while they're in a bugged out state, thinking that they're Nigerian or a Somalian or whatever, man. Telling them to celebrating Kwanzaa instead of Christmas and shit. That's Esau's doing, man, because he don't want you to know that you're an Israelite. Because once we attach to our power, it is a wrap, which is inevitable because of its prophecy. But let's continue on. It says, I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch I am an apostle to the Gentiles, of the Gentiles. I magnify my office, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. And it's to provoke to jealousy. Okay, to make people want to get up and get into this truth, man. Sometimes you got to curse Jake out. Sometimes you got to, whatever measures to trigger them. Because at the end of the day, Jake is Jake, man. Jake is Jake. A Jake woman could be with an Edomite man, and she made a choice and cognitively told herself that I'm right for making this choice. And she walked by a bunch of niggas, and niggas start saying something, she gonna feel some type of fucking way, man. Because it's not our nature to marry unto them. Now, if you fucking on them, that's different. You know what I'm saying? But if you like sitting there looking in all this person's eyes and you walk past your people and you're like, man, tuck your head. You know what I'm saying? Jake men don't, cause Jake, men are conquerors, man. Women are the ones that's conquered. So it's a shame to be conquered by a dirtbag. Okay? But, amongst many other things, man, our people going to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2. It's in our nature, man, to upbraid things, correct things. Take them goddamn shoes off, boy. Go wash your ass. Smell like outside. You know what I'm saying? No, don't do that. Don't eat like this. You know what I'm saying? Poverty is a different thing, but as far as just like Europe, man. Esau had Europe, bro. It was a cesspool. The Moors had hot water baths and all kind of shit, man. you know, ain't nothing changing, man. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that out, man, because this is proof that like I said, we're Jason Bourne, and we're coming back, and we're stirring up our people's minds by way of remembrance. We're bringing up our history. We're connecting the dots, giving understanding to the matters, so that our people can come back. And the closer we get to the end of this thing, the more things, like, we all now to serve the Lord. It's in us. Regardless if your ass want to have an unk around your neck, it's in you to serve a higher power. All right? That's that Jason Bourne shit. How can I do this? Why am I praying? Because it's in us. Second Ezra, y'all shall find that your name should be nowhere but in Israel. Only we have known your precepts. It's always been like that. Going back to Adam, to Abraham. Okay? Like it's in us to serve him. All right, which is, we were created that way, but it's also in us to do it. So that's a commendable thing in itself. You know, amongst many other things, man. I could go on and on about it, but the whole point is that, you know, the closer we get to the end of this thing, the more we're gonna start getting activated. The more scripture's gonna make sense. Okay, because prophecies are manifesting. The more you're gonna get tired of this shit. Okay, because you've been tired of it. There's gonna come a point you're gonna realize your business ain't it don't work. It don't make no sense. You're gonna realize you gotta go to your enemy for one of all things. Like Jake getting tired of Esau. You know what I'm saying? And niggas that's bugged out is really clinging on to him. It's like it's going to be a definitive line drawn in the sand. Okay? And it's a beautiful thing. Regardless of what side is chose, you seeing it clear as day all this mystery of what's the right way to live and what it's all going to be manifest. And the devil shall be revealed, and Esau is going to be revealed. The man is sin. Okay, even though it was in the time of Rome, it's being reenacted now. The same energy, the back and forth, the fighting. The Gentiles versus the 2/3. I mean, the Israelite, the elect versus the 2/3. The Israelites versus Rome. You know what I'm saying? The Romans versus Romans. The devaluing of the money. It's the same energy. The Lord almost like traced over. He stenciled Rome, the time of Rome, into America, low-key, and made some minor adjustments. Because this comes from the daily wound that was healed, man. The whore that's on the dragon comes from the daily wound that was healed. Okay? But, yeah, I'll leave it there, man. With that being said, I'm going to give all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruchah HaKodash. Double honor to our apostles who are elders of Ruel. Blessings and salutations to you brothers out there teaching and enduring truth and sincerity. Shalom.